All right, we are here for our atmosphere, weather, and instruments and clouds video to help us get ready for the upcoming test that will be here in just a few days. Now, if you've been a part of any of the science classes that I have, I am really big on memory dumping before the test. I promise you, if you do the memory dump before this test, you will be fine. On the front of your test, it will probably say atmosphere, it'll say weather instruments, and it will say clouds. So you know that three massive portions of this test are going to be focused on atmosphere, weather instruments, and clouds. Before you do anything else, I would get out a blank sheet of paper and I would start focusing on atmosphere. Weather instruments. And finally, clouds. I wouldn't even start looking at the test until I have done this. What I want for you to do right now is to pause this video. I want you to write everything that you know on separate sheets of paper about atmosphere, weather instruments, and clouds. We are going to start with atmosphere. I want you to take a look at the notes that you took and the memory dump that you did when you had the video pause. And hopefully when you think of atmosphere, you can think of that awesome little trick that we used to learn the layers of the atmosphere, and that was everyone thank Miss Saunders today. And the only thing that could possibly be tricky in these two things are the two T's. But we can remember that. That's a very easy thing for us to remember. Now we also have up here at the top, let's go ahead and get this in here. We know we have the exosphere. Under the exosphere, one of the hottest places that we have is the thermosphere. Then we have the mesosphere, the stratosphere, and we have the troposphere. Now, hopefully what you did is not only just write that, but you wrote out the things that you know that are very important about each of these layers. The exosphere, for example, is going to blend into space. There's something very important about the thermosphere, and it's something that you might see in the thermosphere, especially if you ever get the chance to go up to Alaska. It's very beautiful. It is the aurora borealis. Now here's the trick that you need to know. It's not always called the aurora borealis on the test. Sometimes they throw a little curveball at us, and they're also going to call that, hopefully you had on your notes, the northern lights. There are southern lights. I have never seen that on a test. Same thing. Aurora borealis, it's made by the same atmospheric conditions and all the ions bouncing off of each other. All of that's the same, but it's the aurora borealis. Now in the mesosphere, the thing that I love about the mesosphere, this one is the easiest for me to remember. Something that starts with an M happens in the M mesosphere, and that is that meteors burn up here. If it was not for our mesosphere, the Earth would look more like the moon with all those big like holes and craters in it. I don't think that would be very good. Plus it would be not too fun to stand outside. Stratosphere is very important. If you've ever been outside on a super sunny day, you're probably very happy that the stratosphere has the ozone layer in it. Now, the troposphere, which is the one closest to the Earth and us, this is where, and the most important thing you need to know, hopefully you wrote down, this is where weather occurs. So now we have some notes before we even start to take the test about atmosphere. The next thing that we want to look about is the weather instruments. You have a few weather instruments that you need to be looking at. You have thermometer, hygrometer, barometer. You have anemometer. The easiest of them all, other than spelling, the rain gauge. Maybe the second and easiest in here is the wind vane, unless you get that confused with the anemometer. Now you got to know what these measure, right? Thermometer measures temperatures. Hygrometer, I like this one. It starts with an H. It measures humidity, which is moisture in the air. You might hear old folks saying, in the summertime, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that makes it so hot outside. Barometer. Barometer is very, very important. It measures air pressure. Now, this is one that I don't want you to just to memorize for the test. We're going to come back to air pressure over and over and over again. You will hear barometer, you will hear air pressure at least 1,000 more times. Anemometer is one that you can get confused with wind vane. Just remember, the wind vane is the thing that actually has an arrow. The wind vane is going to measure the direction of wind. And luckily for us, thanks to PTO, they got us some anemometers. We've actually held those in class and had them on the playground, and we measured wind speed, which is pretty awesome. Now, the last one is the easiest, the rain gauge. It measures. Now, if I say rain, that's too obvious. Be careful. It could say that it measures precipitation. If Mr. Bullens can spell, trying to do 5 things at one time, not working out for me. All right, so we have our weather instruments. Now we also need to know about our clouds. We have Cirrus Clouds, Stratus Clouds, Cumulus Clouds. And I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to put these under this, but then we have this very important category of nimbo or nimbus clouds. And you have cumulonimbus or nimbostratus. And these are going to be very important for us to remember. Now with the cirrus clouds, these bad boys are thin, they're wispy, they look like a horse's tail, which is kind of easy to remember, and they typically mean fair weather. The next thing that we have is our stratus clouds. These things are like a blanket. They cover the sky. And some mornings you might see low-lying stratus clouds, which is fog. When stratus clouds are covering the sky, the sun can't shine through. Typically those days are a little cooler. What I love about stratus clouds is when they roll in after a nice warm day and they come over top of the sky, especially when I'm getting into my hammock or my tent, and they hold some of that heat from the day in. It's a nice, wonderful evening to sit by the campfire and it doesn't get too cold. Cumulus clouds, these are the ones you guys love making during the cloud making process. These are the ones that look just like cotton balls. Typically when you see cumulus clouds, you know that it's going to be fair weather. Now these two down here, nimbo and nimbus, this typically means some type of precipitation. With your cumulonimbus, I'm telling you now, this one here, highlighted in red, highlighted in green, highlighted in blue, I'm going back and highlighting it again in black, is the most important cloud. You'll hear most of your questions revolving around this on EOGs and on tests. This is your thunderstorm cloud. You're going to have lightning. You're going to have hail with this. You're going to have really severe storms. Nimbostratus, you'll see as well, but these are those like days when It just rains slowly, maybe a little heavy, but constant. It's not that big booming thunderstorm that you have. It's that constant, just all day rain and more rain and more rain. Now, let's dig into some of the questions you might see on the test. Which instrument would be best for measuring precipitation? Now, I'm not going to flip back. You have your notes. I can go back to my instruments. I have them all here. A thermometer. I'm going to start, let's see, I'm looking for precipitation. Thermometer measures heat. Anemometer measures wind speed. Rain gauge measures precipitation. Thank goodness some cool teacher told me about that. And a wind vane measures the direction of the wind. I look back up here. Which instrument measures precipitation? Without a doubt, my answer is rain gauge. It's very simple. I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and work this one out. Climate. I remember climate, and I remember weather. Weather was your day-to-day, and climate was long periods of time. Let's see, climate of an area. All right, well, this one says weather forecast and next week. That is definitely day to day. That is not my answer. Average humidity during the day. Again, there's that word. That is not my answer. Average temperatures for a month. That is a longer period of time, and that is my best answer. Question 4, I must have mixed the questions up. Take time to pause the video here and come back and we'll see as we work through it. Why should I know the types of clouds? A, so I can tell them apart. That's not a terrible answer, maybe on that one. They tell you if it's night or day. No, I've seen clouds at night and in the daytime. That's bad. Some clouds are dangerous and could produce lightning and storms. That's a pretty decent answer too. So you can see the layers of the atmosphere. Yes, because we completely talked about seeing the layers of the atmosphere. That is not true. Now I've got 2 answers here. So I can tell the clouds apart, or some clouds are dangerous and can produce lightning and storms. Which one of those is more important? Obviously C is more important. Take a moment. Go through this, break it down, and we'll come back and do it together. Layers of the atmosphere. I remember that. I've got my notes. Where weather occurs, you should be looking at your notes, your memory dump. I have thermosphere. It is definitely not the thermosphere. That was the auroras. Auroras. Man, I spelled that wrong. Whatever. The exosphere. That's next to space. The mesosphere. Oh, there's that M word. Meteors. The troposphere, that's closest to Earth, and we took in our notes, we actually said that's where weather occurs, and look at this. Boom. Answered. Easily done. Why is there usually more cloud cover at higher altitudes? As we go up in the atmosphere, what tends to happen, at least to where the clouds form, is our temperature, it's maybe hot down here, so heat rises, but when it gets up to a certain point, it's going to cool off. That water vapor cools off and condenses, and it's going to form clouds. It's cooler in the higher parts of the atmosphere, and that's where clouds are formed.